Many Republicans have made no secret of their quest to find someone, anyone, in the conservative world to topple Donald Trump. Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse, one of the earliest anti-Trump figures in Congress, called for a third-party candidate in an open letter that he posted on Facebook last night. Sasse says he's not interested in being that candidate, but, quote, never Trump standard bearer and Weekly Standard editor Bill Kristol is undeterred. He told my colleague Andrea Mitchell that the environment is ripe for a third party. Well, since Donald Trump became the last man standing in the Republican race, Google searches for Gary Johnson have spiked. Johnson is the former two-term New Mexico governor who served as a Republican, winning both times by nearly 10 points, in a swing state, mind you. Johnson ran in 2012 as the Libertarian Party's nominee for president. This year, he plans to run again, hoping to win the nomination at the end of this month. The Libertarian Party is arguably the only third party with a shot at being on the ballot in all 50 states. Well, Libertarian presidential candidate Gary Johnson joins me now. Governor Johnson, welcome back to the show. Let me ask you this. Why'd you leave the Republican Party in the first place?
Well, really, the Republican Party shut me out. I'm a social liberal. I'm a classic liberal, fiscally conservative, socially liberal. Chuck, I think most people in this country fall in that category. Well, where's the representation when it comes to presidential candidates on the Republican side? There's not that representation, and like I say, I think that's a representation of most Americans fall in that category.
You know, there was a time Donald Trump would have described himself that way. Do you believe Donald Trump is closer to you on some of these social issues, for instance?
Well, no, not really. I mean, Donald Trump, he's going to deport 11 million illegal immigrants. He's going to build a fence across the border. He's going to ban Muslims from coming into this country. He's going to kill the families of Islamic terrorists. He's all for free market, but then in the next sentence he says he's going to ban Apple from making their iPads and their iPhones in the United States. I mean, this just goes on and on and on. I don't know how we could be more opposite. I think Donald Trump alienates half of Republicans.
Let me ask you this. So if you get this nomination, how do you view yourself as the vehicle to appeal to disaffected Republicans? Or do you think there's also room for disaffected Democrats that maybe supported Sanders and didn't want Hillary Clinton? And what would your appeal to them be?
Chuck, I make the pitch to, and I'm going to make the pitch to everybody watching right now, to get on the website isidewith.com. Take the political quiz. Find out which political candidate you most match up with, and then knock yourself out supporting that candidate. I think it's interesting that I side with myself 99% of the time, but then the next politician that I most align with is Bernie Sanders at 73%. So Bernie's got a lot of libertarian tendencies. Of course, when it comes to markets, when it comes to big government versus small government, we kind of go different directions at that point, but there's more to agree with Bernie Sanders than to disagree. I just think at the end of the day, when Trump has to go out and garner support of 30% of the far right, and Hillary has to go out and garner 30% of the support of the far left, and when 50% of Americans right now are declaring themselves as independent, statistically, don't the two major parties represent about 30% of the electorate? I mean, that's the big dissatisfaction that's out there right now.
Let me ask you this. We've gotten to this point where it looks like both parties are going to nominate two people who have unfavorable ratings that would be record levels. It's a record level for Trump. For Clinton, it's not a record level because of the existence of Trump. Have you gotten more money? Have you gotten more support? What kind of calls have you gotten in the last week?
Well, the interest has gone way up. And for me, Chuck, the crux is just being in the polls. I wouldn't be doing this if there weren't the opportunity of winning. But the only opportunity that a third party has of winning is to be in the presidential debates. The Presidential Debate Commission says that you have to be at 15% to be in the debates, 15% in the polls.
That's a pretty fair number, isn't it, though? I mean, if we include you, I think it's fair for you to ask.
But how about the fact that you're not in the polls?
Well, that's a fair
Yeah, but how about the fact that you're not in the polls that determines the 15%? Another thing that I think you pretty well pointed out is the Libertarian Party is going to be on the ballot in all 50 states.
You're confident of that?
I hope
100%.
to be that nominee. if you have all the money in the world right now, you can't get on the ballot in all 50 states. If you have all the money in the world right now and you set out to be a third party, there's a good chance you wouldn't be on the ballot in enough states to mathematically be elected, 270 electoral votes.
Right.